9 to 10, people who live near the plaza, they aren't the only ones looking at change. Those in the West Bottoms are calling for it. And for them, it's about safety. We've received several tips of car break-ins in the urban core, specifically around the West Bottoms. And that's where we find our own Grant Stevens. Grant, I know you looked into this today. What'd you find out?
Yeah, Kevin, it's not just 1 or 2 cars every once in a while. Honestly, that would be normal. It's neighbors telling us about 6 cars in one lot, 8 in another, 14 in the third. Honestly, it hasn't been hard to find evidence of this sprinkled everywhere throughout the street. But what was harder to link is the relationship between what neighbors were saying and what police reports were showing us. Those two things weren't really matching. So I wanted to find out why.
The story on paper is different from what we're seeing on pavement.
He said that I think 12 cars were broken into, and something he stated that I feel too is like our cars down here are like sitting ducks.
I spoke to nearly a dozen residents who say the same thing as Chris Douglas. They're seeing more broken glass, but an unchanging number of patrols.
I mean, if people are breaking in cars in the middle of broad daylight in the West Bottoms and that's not an issue, like...
Some property management has in the last month or so turned to private companies like SK Security to take care of that issue.
Teams of people. What we've noticed is that people will drive up in their vehicles that are blacked out. Okay, they'll pull up to a parking spot. A group of 4 to 5 individuals get out of the car.
Their uptick in requests usually follows big break-ins.
It's definitely been picking up recently. I get anywhere from, I'd say, 2 to 8 phone calls a day.
But for some reason, police aren't getting some of those calls. They got Douglas's both time he and his girlfriend's cars were broken into, but not all his neighbors.
I reported both of my break-ins, and even on our Facebook group for here, I've encouraged people to reach out because even when I called, they said that there hasn't been a lot of reports.
And there's a core problem.
To be frustrated and not report it is, it just doesn't add up in my mind.
So why should you report? Yeah, it won't fix the window, but it gives police something to work with. For example, in lots with multiple piles of broken glass, police data only shows 1 or 2 reports in a month. Statistically insignificant, and extra patrols only go where the data goes.
What does it have to get to be statistically significant?
Now, I talked to some of those neighbors about why they wouldn't report broken glass like this, why they wouldn't report some of these break-ins. And they tell me that it was kind of a convenience thing. It is a bit of a lengthy process to go through, to file a report, to wait for an officer. But police and that security company told me it is worth it because without evidence of something like this, the hard data, nothing will change long term. Live in the West Bottoms, Grant Stevens, KSHB 41 News.